The best day of my life was the day my son was born. The worst was the day I buried him. But the day I'll never forget, the day that changed everything, was when my daughter-in-law looked me straight in the eye, right there at the funeral reception, and said, "Pack your bags. You have 30 days." My name is Robert Patterson, and this is the story of how one assumption cost someone everything. The November rain had stopped by the time we got back to the house, my house, though Vanessa had already started calling it hers. I stood in the doorway of Jamie's old bedroom, looking at the space my son had left behind. The walls still held the faint outline where his baseball posters used to hang. The carpet still showed indentations from his desk, moved out when he left for college 12 years ago. I'd kept this room exactly as he'd left it. Vanessa thought that was pathological. She'd said so more than once. "Robert," her voice came from behind me, cold, professional, like she was about to fire an employee. I turned. Vanessa stood in the hallway wearing a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her makeup was perfect, not a tear track in sight. She'd cried at the funeral, but the tears had stopped the moment we left the cemetery. Mine hadn't. "We need to talk about your living arrangements," she said. I nodded. Waited. That's what you do when you're 70 years old and your son just died. You wait. You let other people make the decisions. You stay quiet because grief has stolen your voice. "This house is mine now," Vanessa continued. She walked past me into Jamie's room without waiting for permission. "Jamie left everything to me. That's how marriage works." "I understand," I said quietly. "I don't think you do." She opened Jamie's closet, empty except for some old winter coats. "I've been patient, Robert, really patient, but the reality is, I can't afford to support you anymore." "Support me?" The words hung in the air like smoke. "Jamie was covering your expenses for 2 years," she continued, pulling out a coat and examining it like she was deciding whether to donate it or trash it. "The property taxes alone are $8,000 a year. Add utilities, maintenance, your medical bills. It adds up." I watched her sort through my dead son's belongings while explaining how much of a burden I was. "I found you a place," she said. "Sunset Meadows. It's a very nice senior community. Studio apartments start at $1,100 a month." "$1,100, I repeated. "Your Social Security should cover most of it. There are programs for the rest." She turned to face me, her expression something between pity and impatience. "Robert, this is reality now. We both have to adjust." A memory flashed. Jamie at 8 years old helping me build a bookshelf for this very room, his small hands struggling with the screwdriver. "Dad," he'd said, "when I grow up, I want to build houses like you built this one." I'd laughed. "This house isn't going anywhere, son. It'll be here long after I'm gone." "Robert," Vanessa's voice pulled me back. "Did you hear me? I need an answer. Will you move voluntarily, or do I need to start formal eviction proceedings?" Through the window, I could see guests leaving the funeral reception, my neighbors, Jamie's friends, people who'd known our family for decades. They had no idea what was happening in this room. "I'll move," I said finally. Vanessa's shoulders relaxed. "Good. That's very mature of you. I'll have my attorney draft something. Professional and clean. No hard feelings." No hard feelings. As if she hadn't just kicked me out of my own house on the day I buried my son. "You have until December 15th, she added. "That gives you 30 days. Same timeline I'm giving myself to adjust to all this." She gestured vaguely, like all this was an inconvenience rather than a tragedy. After she left, I sat in Jamie's old recliner, the one I'd bought him for his 16th birthday. The leather was cracked now, worn from years of use. I ran my hand over the armrest and let myself cry, not because of the house, not because of the money, because my son had just died, and his widow couldn't even wait until the funeral reception was over before starting the eviction process. 3 weeks before the funeral, I'd stood in a different room entirely, Jamie's hospital room at Cleveland General. The machines had been beeping steadily for hours, then suddenly they weren't. The doctor had said words like massive trauma and nothing we could do. But all I heard was the silence where my son's heartbeat should have been. Vanessa had collapsed against me, sobbing. I'd held her, this woman my son had loved, and stroked her hair while she cried. That's what you do. You comfort each other, each. You lean on family. "What are we going to do?" she'd whispered into my shoulder. "The mortgage, the bills, I can't do this alone. We'll figure it out together, I told her. She'd pulled back and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pity, maybe. Or calculation. You don't understand, she'd said. You can't help. Jamie was carrying both of us. Both of us. Like we were equal weights on my son's shoulders. I should have said something then, should have corrected her assumption, but she was grieving, and I'd learned a long time ago that grief makes people say things they don't mean. Except maybe she did mean it. The funeral planning started 2 days later. Vanessa arrived at the house, my house, with a 3-ring binder and a determined expression. I've been researching funeral homes, she announced, spreading brochures across my kitchen table. The same table where Linda and I used to do the crossword every Sunday morning. O'Brien and Sons has the best reviews. They can do the service next Tuesday. Tuesday's fine, I said. I'm thinking mahogany casket, white roses, and we'll use the main chapel. It seats 200. I nodded, watching her flip through her binder. She had everything organized, costs, timelines, vendor comparisons. The woman had made a spreadsheet for my son's funeral. For the music, she continued, I'm thinking something uplifting. Amazing Grace, maybe, or that Celine Dion song from Titanic. Jamie loved Remember When, I said quietly. Alan Jackson. It was his favorite song. Vanessa looked up from her binder. The country song. He played it at his wedding, said it reminded him of... That's too sad, she interrupted. We need something more appropriate. No offense, Robert, but you're not thinking clearly right now. Let me handle this. I watched her make a note in her binder, watched her cross out music and write something else. Watched her take control of every detail of my son's funeral without asking what he would have wanted. Betty Morrison had been standing in the doorway. I didn't know how long she'd been there, but she caught my eye and frowned. After Vanessa left, Betty came in without knocking. That's how it is when you've been neighbors for 35 years. Rob, she said carefully, Linda would never let anyone talk to you like that. Vanessa's grieving, I said. People handle loss differently. Betty sat down across from me and took my hand. Grief doesn't excuse rudeness, honey. That woman just steamrolled right over you. She's doing her best. Is she? Betty squeezed my hand. Because from where I'm sitting, she's doing exactly what she wants, and you're letting her. I pulled my hand away gently. It's just a funeral, Betty. It doesn't matter. But it did matter. Even then, some part of me knew it mattered. The funeral reception was exactly what Vanessa had planned. Tasteful, controlled, appropriate. 200 people filled the house, balancing paper plates and speaking in hushed voices about what a tragedy it all was. I moved through the rooms like a ghost. My living room, my dining room, my kitchen, all filled with people treating Vanessa like the lady of the house and me like a confused elderly relative who might wander off if not watched carefully. In the living room, I overheard Vanessa talking to Ashley Clark, one of her real estate colleagues. How are you managing financially? Ashley asked, her voice low, but not low enough. I know Jamie's salary was your main income. Vanessa glanced at me across the room. It's complicated. Jamie was supporting his father too. The life insurance will help, but Robert's expenses are significant. Oh no, I didn't realize he was dependent on you guys. Most people don't. Robert's very private about his situation. Vanessa lowered her voice even more, but I've always had good hearing. The house alone costs $8,000 a year in property taxes, plus his medical expenses, utilities, food. Jamie never complained, but it was a strain. Ashley made a sympathetic noise. Can he move to assisted living? I'm working on it. It's delicate, you know. He built this house back in the 80s. There's a lot of emotional attachment. Built this house. Past tense. Like it was ancient history. Like I wasn't standing 15 feet away. I moved to the dining room where Derek Anderson, Jamie's best friend since college, was talking to some other young professionals. Rob built this house himself, Derek was saying, back in '87, paid for the whole thing in cash. Really? One of the others said. I thought Jamie inherited it from his mom. Derek hesitated. Well, maybe. I know Jamie always called it the family home. I just assumed. Makes sense, another friend said. I mean, Rob's what, 70? He probably couldn't afford the upkeep anymore. Good thing Jamie was helping out. I kept walking. In the kitchen, Betty was holding court with some of the neighborhood ladies. Poor Robert, one of them was saying. First Linda, now Jamie. How will he manage at his age? He's 70, not 90, Betty said sharply. Man's sharp as a tack. But living alone in this big house, the property taxes alone must be astronomical. Who says he can't afford it? The woman gave Betty a look. Come on, Betty. We all know Jamie was taking care of him. Vanessa's been very discreet about it, but it's obvious. I grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and escaped to the back porch. The November air was cold, but it was better than listening to people discuss my finances like I was a charity case. Through the window, I could see Vanessa working the room. She had the perfect balance, grief-stricken enough to earn sympathy, composed enough to seem capable. She shook hands, accepted condolences, and subtly positioned herself as the head of the family now. People believed her because they wanted to. It fit their expectations. Successful young woman takes care of aging father-in-law out of the goodness of her heart. It was a nice story. It just wasn't true. I stayed on the porch until most of the guests had left. Then I went down to the basement, ostensibly to get more folding chairs for the stragglers. The filing cabinet stood in the corner where it had been for 40 years. 4 drawers, 4 decades of meticulous record-keeping, every receipt, every tax return, every investment statement. I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a folder labeled Patterson Family Trust, Confidential. I didn't open it. Not yet. I just held it for a moment, feeling the weight of the paper, the weight of truth. Not yet, Linda, I whispered to my late wife wherever she was. Let her show who she really is first. I put the folder back, closed the drawer, and carried the folding chairs upstairs. Sometimes the best strategy is patience. Let people reveal themselves. Let assumptions grow into certainties. Let confidence become arrogance. And then, when the time is right, let truth do what truth does best. Vanessa thought she knew the whole story. She thought she had it all figured out. She had no idea what was coming. 3 days after the funeral, I sat at my kitchen table with my morning coffee and the plain dealer crossword puzzle. Linda and I used to do it together every morning. Now I did it alone, filling in the blanks while her coffee mug sat empty across from me. I made 2 lists on a legal pad. The first list, what Vanessa thinks she's inheriting. House, $420,000, her own professional valuation. Life insurance, $150,000. Jamie's 401k, approximately $180,000. Total, $750,000. The second list, what Vanessa is actually inheriting. And Jamie's car, 2019 Honda Civic. Jamie's personal belongings, Jamie's 401k, $180,000. This one was legitimate. Wedding debt still outstanding, minus $12,000. Total, roughly $168,000 in a used car. The gap between perception and reality, $582,000. That's an expensive assumption. The doorbell rang at 9:30. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when you've lived in the same house for 37 years, neighbors don't always call ahead. It was Vanessa. She had a key, Jamie's key, but at least she'd had the courtesy to ring the bell. Robert, I found these in Jamie's desk. She walked past me into the kitchen, carrying a manila folder. I think we need to talk about them. She spread papers across my crossword puzzle, payment confirmations, account statements, receipts, all with R. Patterson in the billing name. Jamie was paying your bills, she said, pointing to each document. Electric, water, internet. This one's from last month, $200 for utilities. I picked up the electric bill. It was indeed addressed to R. Patterson, but the address wasn't 447 Maple Street. It was Vanessa and Jamie's apartment in Lakewood, where they'd lived before moving in with me after Linda died. That's your electric bill, Vanessa, I said quietly. From the apartment, Jamie had it forwarded to me so I could pay it before you moved. She blinked. What? You asked him to consolidate the bills. I paid this one as a wedding gift, meant to cover your utilities for the first year. Her face flushed slightly, but she moved on to the next document. Fine. But what about these property tax receipts? Jamie paid $8,400 last year. Can I see those? She pulled the folder back. I don't have them with me, but I saw them in his filing system. His filing system in this house? Yes. Vanessa, my filing system has been in the basement for 40 years. Jamie never had access to it. He had his own files for his own property. Well, wherever I saw them, they showed Jamie paying your property taxes. I took a sip of my coffee, which had gone cold. Did the receipts actually show Jamie's name, or did they show R. Patterson? She hesitated. Because my name is Robert Thomas Patterson, I continued, and if you saw receipts in my filing system, they'd be mine. You're twisting this around, she said, her voice rising. The point is, Jamie told me he was helping you financially. What exactly did Jamie tell you? That he was taking care of things, that I shouldn't worry about your expenses. And you interpreted that as him paying my bills. What else would it mean? I stood up and walked to the sink, rinsing my coffee mug. Through the window, I could see Betty working in her garden next door, 35 years of watching each other's backs. Vanessa, I said carefully, in 8 years of marriage, did Jamie ever show you a mortgage statement for this house? We kept our finances separate. Did he ever mention making house payments, writing checks for property taxes, paying insurance premiums? Her jaw tightened. We didn't discuss every detail of his expenses. Exactly. I dried my hands on the dish towel Linda had embroidered with sunflowers. You didn't discuss details. You made assumptions. I made observations, she corrected. I observed Jamie helping you, bringing groceries, paying bills, taking care of the house. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to ask. She gathered her papers, shoving them back into the folder. I don't need to ask. The reality is obvious. You're 70 years old, living on Social Security, in a house you can't afford to maintain. Jamie was subsidizing your lifestyle, and now that burden falls to me. Except I can't carry it. There was that word again. Burden. I found you a place, she continued, pulling out a brochure. Sunset Meadows. I drove by yesterday. It's actually very nice. Studio apartments are $1,100 a month, but they have community meals, activities. My Social Security is $1,800 a month, I interrupted. Exactly. So after rent, you'd have $700 for everything else. It's tight, but doable. And you've calculated that I can live on $700 a month. There are programs, Robert. Food assistance, Medicare. The government helps senior citizens. You won't starve. I looked at this woman my son had married, really looked at her. She genuinely believed every word she was saying. She'd constructed an entire narrative in her head, and every piece of evidence that contradicted it, she'd explained away. When do you want me out? I asked. December 15th. I know it's only 30 days, but I need to start fresh. I can't afford to maintain this place and support you indefinitely. I'm sorry, but that's reality. After she left, I sat back down at the kitchen table. The crossword puzzle was ruined, covered in coffee rings and paper debris. I looked at the empty chair where Linda used to sit. She really believes it, I said to the silence. She thinks she's doing me a favor. Jamie's letter flashed through my mind, the one he'd written when he got married, sealed in an envelope marked, "To Dad, do not open unless I die." I'd found it in his desk drawer while looking for the funeral program. Please, take care of Vanessa. She's strong, but she's scared of being broke. Her mom died because they couldn't afford treatment. That fear drives everything she does. Be patient with her. I'd tried to be patient, but patience has limits, and Vanessa was about to discover that assumptions have consequences. Over the next week, I watched Vanessa's campaign unfold across Cleveland's suburban landscape. She didn't do it maliciously. I don't think she even realized she was doing it. But every conversation, every interaction, every casual comment reinforced the story she'd decided was true. At the grocery store on Wednesday, I ran into Helen Schmidt, who'd taught Jamie in 3rd grade. "Robert," she pulled me into a hug, "how are you holding up?" "Day by day," I said. "I saw Vanessa at Starbucks yesterday. She mentioned you're transitioning to a senior community." Helen's voice held that careful tone people use when they're trying not to sound pitying. "We're discussing options." "Well, Sunset Meadows is supposed to be lovely. My sister's friend's mother is there. She loves it." Helen squeezed my arm. "It's probably for the best, you know. This house is too big for one person, and at your age." I smiled and moved on to the produce section. At church on Sunday, Pastor Hughes pulled me aside after the service. "Robert, I wanted you to know that if you need any assistance during this transition, the church has a benevolence fund." "That's kind of you, Pastor." Vanessa mentioned you're on a fixed income. We're here to help our members in need. In need. As if I'd been destitute my entire life. I appreciate it, I said, but I'm managing. Well, the offer stands. Pride shouldn't keep you from accepting help when you need it. I almost laughed. Pride. If only he knew. But the real campaign happened at Vanessa's office. Betty's daughter Kate worked as a paralegal 3 doors down from Premier Realty, and Betty had eyes and ears everywhere. She came over on Tuesday evening with a casserole and gossip. You need to hear what's going around, Betty said, setting the casserole on the counter. Vanessa's been talking to her colleagues. I'm sure she has. No, Rob, you need to hear this. Betty pulled out her phone and opened a text from Kate. This is word for word what Ashley Clark told the receptionist, who told the mortgage broker, who told Kate. She read, Vanessa's handling so much right now. Jamie's death was devastating, but she's also managing the transition of Jamie's father into assisted living. Apparently he's been financially dependent on them for years. She's being very graceful about it, but you can tell it's a strain. The poor woman inherited a house, but also inherited responsibility for an elderly dependent. Betty looked up. An elderly dependent. That's what people think you are. I stirred the pot of soup I was making, Linda's recipe. Does it matter what people think? Yes! Betty slammed her hand on the counter. It matters because it's not true. You're not dependent on anyone. You built this house. You paid for it. You've been taking care of yourself since before Vanessa was born. I know that. Then why aren't you correcting her? I ladled soup into a bowl and sat down. Because she believes it, Betty. She's not lying. She genuinely thinks she's right. So correct her. Why? So she can feel embarrassed, so the whole neighborhood can gossip about how she made a mistake? I shook my head. That doesn't serve anyone. Betty sat down across from me, studying my face. This is about Linda, isn't it? What? You're so deep in grief you don't care what happens to you. You're just drifting, letting life happen. I ate a spoonful of soup. It needed salt. Linda always said I undersalted everything. Rob? Betty's voice softened. I've known you for 35 years. I was there when you broke ground on this lot. I watched you build this house board by board. I brought you lemonade when you worked through that July heat wave in '87. I know what you're capable of. That was a long time ago. Capability doesn't expire. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Do something. Stand up for yourself. Don't let her take everything. I looked at Betty, my neighbor, my friend, Linda's best friend for 40 years. She had tears in her eyes. I'm doing something, I said quietly. What? Packing your bags? I'm waiting. For what? For Vanessa to make a choice. I pulled my hand back gently. Respect costs nothing. Kindness costs nothing. If she chooses cruelty when she thinks she has power, that tells me who she really is. Betty wiped her eyes. And if she is cruel? I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the November sun was setting, painting the sky the same shade of orange it had been the day Linda and I moved into this house. Then I'll teach her, I said, that power without character is just noise. Betty was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, walked over, and hugged me. Linda would be proud of you, she whispered. No, I said. Linda would have handled this 2 weeks ago. I'm still learning to stand up for myself without her. After Betty left, I went down to the basement. I didn't open the filing cabinet. I just stood there, looking at it. 4 drawers, 40 years. Every tax return, every investment statement, every piece of paper that proved I wasn't who Vanessa thought I was. The truth was right there, organized and documented, waiting. But truth without timing is just facts, and I was waiting for the right time. Vanessa had given me until December 15th. That was 4 weeks away, 4 weeks to let her show me who she really was. 4 weeks to let her assumptions harden into certainty. 4 weeks to let her dig the hole deep enough that when she fell in, she'd understand exactly how she got there. I turned off the basement light and climbed the stairs. In the kitchen, I finished my soup and did the dishes. Then I sat in Jamie's old recliner and looked at the photos on the mantel, Linda at our wedding, Jamie at his college graduation, the three of us at Jamie's engineering firm's Christmas party 2 years ago. I'm trying, Linda, I said to her picture. I'm trying to do this right, with grace, with patience, the way you would have wanted. But grace has limits, and patience has an expiration date. December 15th was coming, and Vanessa had no idea what was waiting for her when it arrived. 2 weeks after the funeral, on a cold Sunday afternoon, I was upstairs sorting through Jamie's childhood books when I heard the front door open. No knock, no doorbell, just the sound of my lock turning and voices spilling into the foyer. This place has incredible bones, Vanessa's voice carried up the stairs, but the decor is tragically outdated, total old person aesthetic. I walked to the landing and looked down. 4 women stood in my entryway, taking photos with their phones. Vanessa was giving a tour of my house like it was a museum exhibit. Oh my God, this crown molding. A blonde woman in expensive boots ran her hand along the woodwork. Original? 1987, Vanessa said. Robert built it himself, but he has zero eye for design. Look at that wallpaper. I recognized the blonde from the funeral. Ashley something. The other 2 were strangers. The kitchen's the real tragedy, Vanessa continued, leading them toward the back of the house. Those cabinets are straight out of the 80s. I'm gutting everything. White shaker cabinets, quartz counters, maybe knock out this wall for an open concept. She was planning Linda's kitchen renovation. The kitchen where we'd cooked every holiday meal, where Jamie had learned to make his grandmother's sugar cookies, where I'd proposed to Linda 43 years ago on a snowy December morning. I came down the stairs. The conversation stopped like someone had pulled a plug. Robert! Vanessa's voice shifted to bright cheerfulness. Perfect timing. These are my colleagues, Ashley, Jennifer, and Melissa. We're just getting renovation ideas. Without asking permission to enter my house, I said quietly. The room temperature dropped. Your house, Vanessa repeated, smile frozen. Robert, we've been through this. You've been through it. I've been listening. Ashley shifted toward the door. Maybe we should reschedule. It's fine, Vanessa cut her off. Robert's just struggling with the transition, completely understandable at his age. I'm 70, not 90, I said. And what transition? To more appropriate housing. We discussed this, December 15th. You discussed it. I never agreed to it. Jennifer whispered something to Melissa. They both edged closer to the exit. Ladies, I said calmly, before you start planning renovations, you should probably ask Vanessa to show you the property deed. Vanessa's face went white, then red. Robert, don't... The deed, I continued. The legal document proving ownership. Have you seen it, Vanessa? I don't need to see it. Jamie inherited this house when Linda died. Did he? I walked into the living room, forcing them to turn and face me. That's interesting, because Linda never owned this house either. I bought it in 1987, paid cash. My name's on the deed, only my name. That was 40 years ago, Vanessa's voice rose. Ownership transfers, that's how inheritance works. It is, I agreed, when the owner dies and leaves it to someone, but I'm not dead, and I've never transferred ownership to anyone. The 3 real estate agents were staring at Vanessa now. This is ridiculous, Vanessa said, but her voice wavered. Jamie paid all the bills here, the taxes, utilities, everything. I've seen the receipts. What receipts? She faltered. The ones in his files. Where are these files? In the basement. My basement, in my filing cabinet that you've never actually looked in. Ashley cleared her throat. Vanessa, have you actually verified the title? I don't need to verify anything. Vanessa's composure cracked completely. I was married to him for 8 years. I know what we owned. Do you? I asked. In 8 years, did Jamie ever show you a mortgage statement, a deed, any proof he owned property? Silence. He handled the finances. Vanessa's eyes were filling with tears. That's what husbands do. No, Vanessa, I handled finances. Jamie handled your household expenses. There's a difference. You're twisting everything. She was crying now, mascara running. Jamie told me he was taking care of you, that you couldn't manage alone, that he was paying. He took care of me by mowing the lawn and bringing groceries. I took care of him financially. You have it backward. The room was dead silent. This is insane, Vanessa whispered. You're lying. You're trying to steal my inheritance. What inheritance? I kept my voice gentle. Jamie's 401k is yours, his car is yours, his personal belongings are yours, but this house was never his to leave you. Vanessa turned to her colleagues, desperate. He's manipulating this somehow, some legal trick to— "Get out!" She screamed at them suddenly. "All of you now!" They fled. After the door slammed, Vanessa stood in my living room, shaking. "You have until December 15th, she said, voice cold despite the tears. "If you're not gone, I'm calling the police." "For what? Trespassing in my own home?" "We'll see whose home it is." She left. The silence that followed felt like the aftermath of an explosion. I sat in Jamie's recliner and looked at Linda's photo on the mantel. "Well," I said to her picture, "I tried to do this quietly." That evening, I poured whiskey, the first I'd touched since the funeral, and went to the basement. The filing cabinet stood like a sentinel in the corner. 4 drawers, 40 years of life, documented and organized. Linda used to tease me about it. Normal people don't keep every receipt from 1987. "Proof matters," I'd tell her. "You're a squirrel storing paper acorns." She'd been right, but now those acorns were about to save me. I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out the real estate folder. March 1987, land purchase, Robert Thomas Patterson, buyer, $43,000 paid in full. June 1987, construction complete, final payment, $78,000. March 15, 1987, deed recorded, owner, Robert Thomas Patterson, sole owner. I traced Linda's signature as witness. She'd been 8 months pregnant, glowing, terrified we'd made a terrible financial mistake. "We own land," she'd whispered at the county recorder's office. "We own a home," I'd corrected. The next documents told 37 years of continuous ownership, tax receipts, all in my name, insurance policies, my name, utility bills, my name. Jamie's name appeared nowhere, not once. I opened the 3rd drawer, the folder labeled Patterson Family Trust, private, the trust agreement, established June 1985, before Jamie was born. Current trustee after Linda's death, me. Bank statement, November 30, 2024, balance $847,391.18. $847,000. Vanessa thought she was inheriting $750,000. She had no idea I already had more than that. But the real revelation was in the support log. Every dollar Linda and I had given Jamie. College tuition, $94,000. Graduate school, $31,000. Wedding, $28,000. Car down payment, $15,000. Annual allowance, $8,000 times 8 years equals $64,000. Total, $232,000. Vanessa had it exactly backward. Jamie hadn't been supporting me. I'd been supporting him his entire adult life. The engineering degree, I paid for it. The car, I helped buy it. The wedding, I funded it. Even the monthly money he received, probably told Vanessa it was work bonuses, came from this trust. And the final document, Jamie's life insurance policy. Beneficiary, Patterson Family Trust. Not Vanessa, the $150,000 she'd been planning to spend. It was mine. I sat there in the basement, surrounded by proof, and found the envelope in the back of the folder. Jamie's handwriting. To Dad, do not open unless I die. My hands shook as I opened it. Dad, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. Please take care of Vanessa. She can be difficult about money, but there's a reason. When she was 16, her mom got breast cancer. Treatable, but expensive. They had no insurance, no savings. Vanessa watched her mother die because they couldn't afford treatment. That fear lives in her, the terror of being broke, of being helpless. It drives everything. I never told her about the trust. I wanted her to see me as successful on my own. Maybe that was wrong. But please, Dad, whatever happens, remember, she's scared, not cruel. Love, Jamie. I read it 3 times. Jamie had known exactly what would happen, and he'd asked me to be patient. I'd tried, but patience has limits, especially when fear turns into cruelty. I gave her a chance, son, I whispered. I really did. Tomorrow, I'd call Sarah Bennett. Tonight, I'd sit with ghosts. Sarah Bennett's office smelled like old books and expensive coffee. She'd been Linda's college roommate, our family attorney for 25 years, and godmother to Jamie. Betty called, she said when I arrived Monday morning. She's worried. Betty worries professionally. She said Vanessa brought real estate agents to the house, planned renovations while you were home. That happened. Sarah poured coffee from her French press. What do you want to do? I laid 3 folders on her desk. I want justice, but I want to try mercy first. Sarah opened the folders, the deed, the trust, the insurance policy. She'd helped me establish most of these documents. She didn't need to read them carefully. She really has no idea, Sarah said quietly. None. And you want to give her another chance after she publicly humiliated you? I pulled out Jamie's letter. Sarah read it in silence. When she finished, she wiped her eyes. He knew this would happen. He did. So we offer her grace. Sarah pulled out her legal pad. What does that look like? A letter, formal but not cruel. Explain the facts. Offer her 90 days instead of the 30 she gave me. One chance to handle this with dignity. And if she refuses, then we file eviction, claim the insurance, and correct every lie she's told publicly. Sarah made notes. You know her credibility is already collapsing. 3 clients have transferred to other agents. I heard. This is solving itself naturally. You don't have to do anything. I know, but I want her to choose. Humility or humiliation, her decision. Sarah looked at me for a long moment. Linda would be proud. Linda would have burned the house down 2 weeks ago. Sarah almost smiled. True, you're being much more measured. She pulled out her keyboard. I'll draft the letter today. Certified mail, 7 days to respond. Thank you, Sarah. Rob? She looked at me over her reading glasses. You're offering grace when you could demand justice. That takes strength. Or weakness. No, she said firmly. Weakness would be letting her keep lying. This is courage. 4 days later, Friday afternoon, my doorbell rang. Vanessa stood on my porch with a man in a $500 suit. Robert, she said coldly, this is Richard Morrison, my attorney. Richard extended his hand. I didn't take it. Mr. Patterson, we're here to discuss your occupancy situation. My occupancy of my property. That's what we need to clarify. He pulled out documents. My client has evidence that her late husband was supporting you financially. What evidence? Vanessa jumped in. Utility bills, property tax receipts, bank transfers, which you've mentioned but never shown me. They're private financial records. Then how do you know they exist? Richard cleared his throat. Mr. Patterson, we're here to resolve this amicably. My client is willing to extend your deadline to January 15th. How generous. An extra month beyond the 90 days I already offered her. Richard stopped. I'm sorry? Didn't Vanessa tell you? My attorney sent a letter. I offered her 90 days to relocate, triple what she gave me. Richard looked at Vanessa. She flushed crimson. That letter is meaningless, she said. Robert has no authority. Do you have the deed? I asked. Title insurance? Anything proving ownership? Jamie's will left everything to me. Jamie's personal property, things he actually owned, including this house. Jamie never owned this house. The doorbell rang again. I smiled. That'll be my attorney. Sarah Bennett walked in like she owned the place. Sarah Bennett, representing Mr. Patterson. Richard, good to see you. Richard's face fell. Sarah, I didn't know you were involved. Surprise. She opened her briefcase on the coffee table. Let's clear this up. She laid out documents like cards, the deed, tax receipts, insurance policies, 37 years of continuous ownership by Robert Thomas Patterson. Vanessa stared at them, her face draining of color. This proves nothing, she whispered. He could have paid Jamie's taxes. Why would he do that? Sarah asked. Because Jamie was supporting him. Show me proof. I saw it in Jamie's files. Sarah pulled out the trust documents. Patterson Family Trust, established 1985. Current balance, $847,000. The room went silent. That's impossible, Vanessa breathed. Sarah laid out the support log. Jamie received approximately $8,000 per year from this trust, plus college tuition, wedding expenses, car payments. Total support provided to Jamie, $232,000. Robert wasn't living off Jamie. Jamie was living off Robert. Vanessa collapsed onto the couch. The life insurance. She said desperately. Jamie's policy is mine. Sarah slid across the beneficiary form. Patterson Family Trust, named 6 years ago. No, Vanessa shook her head. That can't be right. Jamie said he'd take care of me. He promised. And he did, I said gently, because I made sure he could. But that security came from me, not from property he owned. Richard was packing his briefcase. Mrs. Patterson, we need to regroup. This isn't what you represented. Wait, Vanessa grabbed his arm. Can't we contest? On what grounds? Everything's documented. The trust predates your marriage. There's nothing to contest. He left. Vanessa sat there crying. My offer stands, I said. 90 days, rent-free, but the lies stop now. She looked up at me. I didn't know. You didn't ask. Would you have told me? Yes, if you'd asked respectfully. She stood, gathering her purse. I'll be out in 60 days. Take the 90. Jamie would want you to have time. At the door, she paused. I'm sorry for everything. I know. Do you forgive me? I thought about Jamie's letter, about Linda's voice, about the difference between cruelty and fear. I'm working on it. 1 week later, Betty hosted her regular Saturday coffee morning. She invited Vanessa and Ashley and Jennifer and Derek and Pastor Hughes. I didn't know about it until Betty called me after. You should have seen it, Betty said. Vanessa walked in expecting judgment. Instead, she got honesty. What happened? She told everyone the truth, that she'd assumed wrongly about the house, about you, about everything. She apologized. And she told them about her mother, about watching her die because they couldn't afford treatment, about the fear that's driven her entire adult life. I was quiet. People understood, Rob. They didn't excuse what she did, but they understood why. That's good. Pastor Hughes offered to help with moving costs. Ashley's finding her an apartment and waiving her commission. Jennifer's going to help her pack. Grace, I thought. The community offering grace. She's trying, Rob, Betty said. She's really trying to change. After I hung up, I sat in my living room, the room where Jamie took his first steps, where Linda and I danced on our 40th anniversary, where 40 years of life had unfolded. Vanessa had hurt me, deeply, but Jamie had asked me to remember she was scared, not cruel. Maybe there was a difference. Maybe grace was possible after all. 6 weeks later, I did something I hadn't done since Linda died. I baked cookies. Linda's sugar cookie recipe, the one with her handwritten note at the bottom, always add extra vanilla, that's the secret. The kitchen filled with the smell of Christmas mornings from decades past, when Jamie was small and would wake up asking if Santa's cookies were ready. When Vanessa arrived at 2 o'clock, she stood in the doorway uncertainly. Come in, I said. Coffee's ready. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd fought, where she'd made her assumptions, where everything had fallen apart. But today felt different. You made cookies, she said, surprised. Linda's recipe, Jamie's favorite. I pushed the plate toward her. You're moving out next week. Thought we should talk first. Vanessa took a cookie but didn't eat it. Robert, I need to say, I know, but first, I want to show you something. I spread the trust documents on the table between us, the same documents that had proven her so completely wrong. This is the Patterson Family Trust, I said. Established 1985 before Jamie was born. Current balance, $847,000. She stared at the numbers like they still didn't seem real. The trust was set up to support family across generations, I continued. Jamie was a beneficiary during his lifetime. When he died, those benefits ended. Everything reverts to me. So it all goes back to you. For now. I pulled out a blank beneficiary designation form, but trusts can have multiple beneficiaries, and I'm 70 years old with no other children. When I die, this money goes somewhere. Vanessa looked up, confused. I'm adding you as a beneficiary, I said. 15% of remaining assets when I pass. The cookie fell from her hand. What? No, Robert, I can't. It won't be immediate. There are conditions. Why? Her voice cracked. After everything I did to you, because Jamie loved you, because you're trying to change, and because I looked around the kitchen Linda and I had designed. Because I don't want this money to die with me. It should go to someone who can build something with it, someone who understands what it means to struggle. Tears ran down her face. I don't deserve this. Grace isn't about deserving, it's about choosing. What conditions? I'd written them down that morning on a legal pad. First, counseling. Real therapy to deal with the trauma from your mother's death. That fear is running your life and it needs to be addressed. She nodded, wiping her eyes with a napkin. Second, complete a financial planning course. Learn to build security the right way, not from a place of panic. Okay. Third, in 5 years we revisit this. If you've grown, if you've changed, the designation stays. If you haven't done the work, I change it. That's more than fair, Robert. That's incredibly generous. There's one more condition. Something you need to do today. She looked at me, waiting. Help me pack up Linda's clothes. I've been avoiding it for 2 years. It's time, and I can't do it alone. The master bedroom closet still smelled like Linda's perfume, that floral scent she'd worn for 40 years. When I opened the door, the smell hit me so hard I had to grab the doorframe. Vanessa's hand touched my shoulder. We don't have to do this today. Yes, we do. I pulled out a blue dress, the one Linda had worn to Jamie's wedding. I can't keep hiding from this. We worked quietly at first, folding clothes, sorting them into donation boxes. Then Vanessa held up a cream cardigan. I remember this, she said softly. Linda wore it to Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago. She told me the story about your proposal. In the kitchen, December 1981, I burned the pancakes because I was so nervous about asking. She said you got down on one knee and the smoke alarm went off. Most romantic moment of my life, accompanied by a screeching alarm and the smell of burning batter. I smiled at the memory. She said yes anyway. We both laughed. Then I started crying. Then we just sat there on the bedroom floor, surrounded by Linda's clothes and memories. Tell me about Jamie growing up, Vanessa said. I only knew him as an adult. I want to know the rest. So I told her. About Jamie at 8, helping me build a bookshelf and getting more glue on himself than on the wood. About Jamie at 12, when I taught him about compound interest and his eyes got huge at the idea of money making money. About Jamie at 16, crashing the Honda into a mailbox and working odd jobs for 2 years to pay me back, even though I told him he didn't have to. He crashed a car? Vanessa laughed through her tears. He never told me that. He was embarrassed. But he learned responsibility from it, learned that when you make mistakes, you fix them, and that people who love you help you through it. Vanessa was quiet for a moment, holding one of Linda's scarves. Is that what you're doing? Helping me fix my mistakes? I'm giving you the chance to fix them yourself. There's a difference. Why, Robert? Really, truly, why? I looked at this woman my son had loved, flawed, scared, damaged by trauma, but also actually trying to be better. Because isolation is killing me, I said honestly. Jamie's gone, Linda's gone. You're the last connection I have to my son. I can choose to be the bitter old man who dies alone with his money and his grudges. Or I can choose family, messy, complicated, imperfect family. I'd like to be family, Vanessa whispered. Then let's try. We finished packing Linda's clothes as the December sun set outside. The boxes would go to charity, but the memories, those we kept. December 22nd arrived cold and clear, moving day. I'd expected Vanessa to hire professional movers. Instead, at 8 in the morning, Betty showed up with breakfast casseroles. At 9, Derek arrived with a U-Haul and 3 of Jamie's college friends. Ashley and Jennifer came with packing supplies and thermoses of coffee. Pastor Hughes showed up to supervise, which mostly meant he told stories and stayed out of the way. The community had rallied. Vanessa's new apartment was in Lakewood, a 2-bedroom with hardwood floors, walking distance from her new job at a different real estate firm. Small, but nice. A fresh start. Before we loaded the last boxes, I found Vanessa standing in Jamie's old bedroom one final time. I never really saw this room, she said. I just saw a guest room with old furniture. I didn't see Jamie here. He stopped sleeping here at 19 when he left for college. I stood beside her in the doorway. But this was his room for 18 years. That corner, that's where his desk was. He'd stay up late doing calculus homework, and Linda would come in at midnight and make him go to bed. What else? That wall held his baseball posters. Cal Ripken Jr. right in the center. He practiced his first guitar in that corner, drove us absolutely crazy playing the same 3 chords for months. I smiled. He brought his first girlfriend here to study. Her name was Amy. He was so nervous he called her Emily twice and didn't even notice. Vanessa laughed. I wish I'd known that Jamie, the awkward teenager Jamie. You knew the man he became. That's worth something too. But here, I handed her a cardboard box I'd prepared. These are for you. What is it? Open it. She lifted the lid. Inside were photos of Jamie as a baby, crayon drawings from elementary school, his first baseball glove, a stack of report cards, his high school graduation tassel. Vanessa pulled out a drawing of a house labeled My House in uneven 6-year-old handwriting. When you have children someday, I said carefully, they should know who their father was. Her face crumpled. I'm not having children, Robert. Jamie was my one chance. I'm 34. It's too late. You're 34, not 44. Life isn't over. It feels like it. I know that feeling. Felt it every day for the first year after Linda died. But feeling and truth are different things. She closed the box carefully. Thank you for this. For all of this. At the new apartment, I helped unpack kitchen boxes while Derek and the others assembled furniture in the living room. I can't believe you're helping me move out of your house, Vanessa said, unwrapping plates. Linda would come back from the grave and haunt me if I didn't help. She almost smiled. I wish I'd known her better, really known her. You still can, through me if you want. I have 40 years of stories. I'd like that very much. By late afternoon, the apartment was taking shape. Not Jamie's home, not Linda's, Vanessa's, a new beginning. As people started leaving, Vanessa caught my arm. What are you doing for Christmas? It's 3 days away. Same thing I've done for 2 years, Chinese takeout and old movies. That's depressing. That's grief. It's also unnecessary. Come here, 2 o'clock Christmas Day. I'll attempt to cook. It'll probably be terrible, so we'll end up ordering Chinese anyway. But we shouldn't be alone, either of us. I looked at her, this woman who'd been my enemy and was becoming something else, family, maybe, or the beginning of it. Jamie would like that, I said. Yes, he really would. June arrived warm and green, and I did something I hadn't done since Linda died. I hosted a barbecue. The backyard was full of people, Betty and her daughter Kate, Derek and some of Jamie's old friends, Sarah, Pastor Hughes, neighbors I'd barely spoken to in 2 years. I stood at the grill, systematically burning hamburgers because Linda had always been the one who actually knew how to cook outdoors. Rob, those are on fire, Betty called out, laughing. I'm adding flavor. You're adding carbon. She took over while I grabbed a beer and looked around the yard, the rose bushes Jamie and I had planted, the bird bath Linda had chosen. 40 years of memories, but today felt like something new. Not replacement, evolution. A car pulled up. Vanessa got out, followed by a man I didn't recognize. She walked over, looking nervous. Robert, this is Mark Davidson. We've been seeing each other for a few weeks. I hope it's okay that I brought him. Mark extended his hand. Accountant, I'd guess from the firm handshake and careful smile. Mr. Patterson, I've heard a lot about you. All terrible, I'm sure. Actually, sir, all good. Vanessa had changed. Not just her appearance, though she looked lighter, less haunted, but something deeper. The constant tension in her shoulders was gone. Updates? I asked her. She pulled out her phone, showed me a certificate. Finished the financial planning course last week, graduated top of my class, and I've been in therapy for 5 months now. Robert, it's actually helping. I'm dealing with things I've avoided for 18 years. I'm proud of you. And I got promoted. Senior agent at the new firm. That's wonderful. Derek called her over to help with something. Mark followed, leaving me with Sarah. Have you told her? Sarah asked quietly. Not yet. It's been 6 months. She's met every condition and then some. I want to be sure. Rob, you're stalling because you're afraid. Of what? Of admitting you've forgiven her completely. Of admitting she's really family now. I watched Vanessa laugh at something Derek said, watched her introduce Mark to Pastor Hughes with confidence instead of fear, watched her be part of this community we'd built from broken pieces. "You're right," I said. "I am afraid, but I'm doing it anyway." After we ate, I tapped my beer bottle with a fork. The conversations quieted. "I want to say something," I announced. 20 faces turned toward me. 6 months ago, I lost my son, and I almost lost myself. I was angry, isolated, drowning in grief. I looked directly at Vanessa. But someone taught me that people can change, that fear can transform into courage, that mistakes don't have to be final. Vanessa's eyes widened, filling with tears. "Vanessa, you've done everything I asked, completed counseling, finished the financial course, rebuilt your career and your life. You've done the work." I pulled out the beneficiary designation form, signed and notarized that morning. "This makes it official. You're now a permanent beneficiary of the Patterson Family Trust, 15% of remaining assets." The yard erupted in applause and cheers. Vanessa was crying. "Robert, I can't." "Yes, you can, because you're family. Messy, complicated, real family. And that's what Jamie would want." Derek raised his beer. "To family!" Everyone echoed. "To family!" Vanessa hugged me, sobbing. "Thank you for believing I could change, for giving me the chance. You did the hard work. I just opened the door." She pulled back, wiping her eyes, and looked at the gathered crowd. "Wait, there's something I need to tell everyone." The yard quieted again, expectant. "I'm starting a foundation," Vanessa said, her voice stronger now. "Using my savings, and eventually part of what Robert is giving me, for families who can't afford medical treatment." Her voice broke. "In memory of my mother, who died because we were poor, and in memory of Jamie, who taught me that kindness is stronger than fear." She looked around at everyone. "I want to call it the James Patterson Memorial Fund, to help people who are terrified like I was, so their fear doesn't make them cruel like mine made me." The silence was profound. Then Pastor Hughes stepped forward. "I'll help you organize it, structure it properly." "Betty, I'll run fundraising campaigns." "Derek, I'll handle the investment side, make sure the money works for people." "Sarah, legal work, completely pro bono." "Ashley, count me in too. Whatever you need." I watched this community, this family, rally around an idea born from pain and transformed into purpose. This was the inheritance, not money, not property. This. "Jamie would love this," I said. Vanessa smiled through her tears. "I hope so. I really hope so." As the sun set over the backyard, I sat in my lawn chair watching people laugh and connect. Betty was showing Mark family photos. Derek and Pastor Hughes were arguing about baseball statistics. Sarah and Vanessa were sketching out foundation plans on a napkin. Found family, built from grief and grace and impossible second chances. I closed my eyes and felt Linda's presence, not literally, but the memory of her warmth, her absolute certainty that love could fix broken things. "We did okay, didn't we, honey?" I whispered. Somewhere in the evening breeze, I imagined her answer. "You did perfect, Rob." Jamie's voice joined hers in my mind. "Proud of you, Dad. So proud." I opened my eyes. The party continued around me, life actually moving forward. Vanessa caught my eye across the yard and smiled, a real smile, free from fear, and I smiled back. The quiet inheritance wasn't money in a trust fund. It was learning that respect, like love, can only be offered and earned, never demanded. It was learning that grace is stronger than judgment. It was learning that families aren't just born. They're built, piece by painful piece, by people brave enough to forgive and wise enough to change. And sometimes the most powerful thing a quiet man can do is speak up for grace, not weakness, strength. 1 year later, the James Patterson Memorial Fund held its first fundraiser. 200 people attended. They raised $68,000. Vanessa stood at the podium and told her mother's story, Jamie's story, and the story of a scared woman who made terrible mistakes and was offered grace instead of judgment. "Robert Patterson taught me," she said, "that inheritance isn't about money. It's about what we choose to pass forward, fear or courage, cruelty or kindness, judgment or grace." She looked at me in the front row. "I choose grace because someone chose it for me first."